It started with a dare, not the kind you laugh off at a party, but the kind that makes your stomach twist before you even say yes. We were in this cramped little coffee shop on the corner of Hemlock and Fifth, the kind where the air smells like burnt espresso and the walls are stained from decades of cigarette smoke. The place was almost empty except for us and a barista too busy scrolling her phone to notice we'd been sitting there for hours. Ryan was leaning forward, elbows on the table, a grin spreading across his face like he just figured out the perfect way to get us killed. "You've heard of the Marrow Street house, right?" he asked, his voice low, like the words themselves might draw attention. Jessie rolled her eyes so hard it was almost audible. "Yeah, the place with the missing kids, the creepy old lady who, what was it? Kept souvenirs. Real bedtime story material." He smirked like that was exactly what he'd been hoping for. Empty for 40 years. Nobody's been able to spend more than a night there. People vanish. No bodies. No explanations. Perfect spot for your journalism project, Claire. I stared at him over my coffee, not meeting his eyes too long. One night inside, record everything, submit it, graduate, and maybe end up on a missing persons flyer. Sounds great. Jessie was already pulling her phone out, recording us like we were some low-budget reality show. "Come on, Claire. Imagine the views. We live stream this. We blow up. Easy million followers." It was stupid. It was reckless. And for some reason, I still said yes. Maybe it was pride. Maybe curiosity. Or maybe something in me wanted to see if the stories were true. I told myself it was just an old house with a bad reputation. Whatever had happened there was in the past. That's what I kept repeating as we drove down Marrow Street at 11:47 p.m. The neighborhood was quiet in a way that felt wrong. No porch lights, no cars, no muffled TVs through windows, just shadow, dead leaves, and the sound of our tires cracking over the road's uneven asphalt. The houses looked abandoned, one by one, until the street ended. And there it was. The mansion rose out of the dark like something misplaced from another time. The roof sagged under decades of rot. Ivy had wrapped itself around the walls like veins over pale skin. Tall, narrow windows glinted in the flickering light of a lone street lamp that hummed and buzzed with dying electricity. Ryan killed the engine. Well, home sweet home. I stepped out and instantly felt it. The air was colder here. A damp, heavy cold that clung to my skin, even though it wasn't cold enough outside for my breath to show. Jessie laughed nervously, starting her live stream. "All right, TikTok. Here's the infamous Marrow Street Nightmare Factory." "Don't call it that," I muttered. That's when I saw him. A man was standing just beyond the gate, barely lit by the flickering lamp. His coat hung in rags, his beard was thick and uneven, and his eyes, God, his eyes were cloudy and pale, like someone had poured milk into them. "She doesn't like visitors," he rasped, voice breaking like dry leaves. Ryan froze. "Who?" The man stepped closer, the gravel crunching under his shoes. "The lady in the red room. Don't let her see your face." Before any of us could respond, he turned sharply and walked away, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there. We stood there in silence, the only sound the gate's rusted hinges groaning as Jessie pushed it open. Okay, that was creepy as hell, but also amazing for the intro. The ground crunched beneath us. Dead leaves, broken glass, maybe bones, I couldn't tell. The front door was unlocked, its wood swollen from years of damp, but it opened without much force. The smell hit immediately. Not just old wood and dust, but something metallic, almost sweet, like rust mixed with rotting fruit. Our phone flashlights sliced through the dark, catching dust that swirled like tiny insects. My beam moved over the walls, faded floral wallpaper curling in long strips, water stains spreading like burns. The pictures lining the hallway were the worst. Each portrait was of a stern-faced man, woman, or child, but every single face had been scratched out, deep gouges where the eyes should have been. On some, the canvas was torn through entirely, revealing the bare wooden frame beneath. "Tell me that's just vandalism," I whispered. "Sure," Ryan muttered, though his voice wavered. We explored, our footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. Every sound seemed to linger too long, like the house was holding on to it. Upstairs, something moved. A shadow at the end of the hall, quick and deliberate. Ryan swore under his breath. Probably a raccoon. We followed the noise to a hallway with 6 doors, all closed. One stood out immediately. The wood was painted deep red, a shade so vivid it looked fresh. In the glow of our flashlights, it seemed to glisten, wet, even though everything else was thick with dust. "This is it," Jessie whispered, grinning for her camera. "The red room." The doorknob was ice cold, burning against my skin in a way that made my stomach knot. I pushed it open slowly. The hinges groaned, the sound low and almost human. The room was nearly empty. Just a rocking chair in the center, moving gently, back and forth, though the air was still. My light caught on a dresser in the corner. On top of it lay a small leather-bound book, the cover warped and darkened with age. I picked it up, careful not to tear the brittle pages. Most of it was illegible. The ink blurred and faded, but one entry stood out, clear as if it had been written yesterday. "I will keep their faces, I will keep their voices, they will never leave me." The air shifted. My light caught movement. A shadow stretched tall across the far wall, too tall to be Ryan or Jessie, its head bent unnaturally to one side. I dropped the journal. "We need to..." Jessie's voice cut through my panic. "Did you hear that?" We turned to her, but she wasn't there. Just empty space where she'd been standing. Her phone lay on the floor, still recording. From it came her voice, faint but distinct. "Claire? Ryan? I can't see you." Only it wasn't coming from the phone's speaker. It was coming from the wall. Ryan cursed and grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. "We have to get out." And then I heard him again, Ryan's voice, but it came from behind me. I turned and my stomach turned to ice. 2 Ryans stood there, one at the end of the hall, pale and still, the other inches from my face, smiling just enough to make it wrong. "She wants your face, Claire," they said together, voices perfectly in sync, layered with something deeper, older, almost like a whispering choir. I stumbled backward, my flashlight shaking wildly. The beam caught glimpses, torn wallpaper, scratched portraits, the red door closing by itself. I ducked into the nearest room, slamming the door. My breath came fast and shallow. I turned on my phone's camera, the screen trembling in my hands. "If you're watching this," I whispered, voice breaking, "don't go near Marrow Street. I'm not alone in here, but everyone else is already dead." Something cold and damp brushed the back of my neck. I turned slowly. She was there, the woman. Her hair hung like a curtain, black and dripping, hiding most of her face. What I could see was pale and stretched, her smile carved too wide, showing teeth that weren't quite right. And in her hands, dear God, she was holding Jessie's face like a mask. I screamed and the phone slipped from my fingers, landing on the floor. The last thing the camera caught was her bending down toward me, her head tilting unnaturally far to the side, before the screen went black.